Good morning. We are continuing with Unit 9. We are doing CO57. This time we are calculating the surface area of a cylinder. So we talked yesterday about the surface area of that rectangular prism, how to make the net of a rectangular prism. Today we're going to be doing it with the cylinder. So remember, a cylinder is a solid with two congruent bases that lie in pair. I am very off in my calibration because I got the new.
You should play the teacher game.
Yeah, I am playing the teacher game with my new projector here. So let's make sure that we are all good. Okay. So two circles that are parallel. Okay, so that is our cylinder. Two congruent bases. Remember, those circles are the bases, and they're parallel. The surface area is the sum of the areas of the outside surfaces of the solid. And remember, a net is a two-dimensional representation of the solid. So if we were to cut that canister out so we could lay it flat, how would it look? Any ideas on what the net would look like of a cylinder?
Oh,
Nick?
wouldn't it just be like two circles, like on each side of each other, and then one big, flat, long rectangle? What?
That is exactly what it would be. Two circles for our two bases and our rectangle laid out flat. Because think about if we roll up that rectangle and then we can flap the circles on each end. Okay, so this is what our net looks like for a cylinder. Yes?
So would the circles like be like?
Well, Anthony, do I ever draw things to scale when I'm just drawing with a marker real quick on the smartboard? So I'm not necessarily drawing this one laid out with that big of a circle because I didn't have that room. You need to understand that it's a circle on top, a circle on bottom with a rectangle in the middle. That's the important part. The surface area S of a cylinder is the sum. What does sum mean? Adding of twice the area of a base. So of the base, that's a circle. Why do we do twice? Yeah, twice means we multiply. Why are we multiplying it by 2? Why are we multiplying the area of the base by 2? Landon? Because there's 2 bases, there are 2 circles. So we're going to multiply that area of the circle by 2. And the product of the base's circumference and height. Oh my goodness. That sounds kind of confusing. Let's see what this looks like. So we have 2 times pi r squared. Remember, pi r squared is the area of a circle. We have 2 circles, so we multiply it by 2. Then we add that to 2 pi r h. So we've got our bases, and in order to find that rectangle, we do 2 pi r h. So that's our cylinder, is that pi r h. That's finding, so we add those two together, the 2 bases plus the product of the base's circumference. That circumference, 2 pi r is the circumference and the height. So we have the circumference of the circle times the height plus the area of the 2 circles. So this is an important formula to know to find the surface area. We're going to be using it a lot. So let's look at an example. Find the surface area of a cylinder with a radius of 3 centimeters and a height of 8 centimeters. Use both the net method and the formula method. So if we're going to use the net method, that's like what we did yesterday, where we're going to draw our net and we're going to label it. So my radius is 3. I'm going to put a 3 in there. And there is a height. Oh, I really didn't make this to scale. So it should be long and narrow. Our height is 8 centimeters. So, first thing we want to do is we want to find the area of our circle. Pi r squared, yes. Do you know what it is? All right, so remember we want to do pi r squared for the circle. So that's pi, the radius is 3 squared. So what is that, Bria? Or did you find the whole thing? Okay, so did you do the formula method? All right.
Well, that is
28 point what? 26. So, and we have 2 of them. And then we have our rectangle that we have to do. So that would be the 2 pi r h. So 2 times pi times r times h. What is that? 100 and what? 0.72. And we need to add them all up. So if we added them all up, what did you get, Bria?
207.24.
And then it would be centimeters squared. So if we're going to do it with our formula method, we don't have to do the net. We're just going to say 2 pi r is 3 squared plus 2 pi r is 3, height is 8. So remember, we have to do our multiplying first before we add the 2 together. So 2 pi 3 squared would be 28.26 times 2. So 28, well, let's work it all up. So 3 squared is 9 times pi. So I'm just hitting the pi button, or you could do 3.14. It will give you a slightly different answer. Please pay attention. So 3 squared is 9 times pi times 2 gives us 56. I'm going to round it to my hundredth place. 56.55. Now I need to find 2 times pi times 3 times 8. So you put that in your calculator. 2 times pi times 3 times 8 is 150.80. Again, I'm just rounding to the hundredth place. If I add that together, I get 207.35. The difference being from what I got to what Brielle got. Brielle, did you do 3.14? Yeah. So it'll be slightly different if you use, remember 3.14 is that approximation. You can use 3.14 or you can use the pi button on your calculator and it'll be just slightly different. You can see our decimals We're just a little bit different because I use the pi button. So if you use the pi button on your calculator, it's okay. You can do that. It'll just be slightly different than somebody who multiplied by 3.14. Yes. Mr. Schultz would prefer that you use the pi button on the calculator. So if you don't have the pi button on your calculator, you're going to use 3.14, and you're going to have a calculator like this for next year's math. So you have to buy a better calculator for next year. It's on the supply list for next year that you have this specific calculator. For this year, we didn't have this specific calculator listed, so I'm not making parents go out and buying a new one. But for next year, you do have to have a specific calculator for Mr. Schultz, and he will want you to be in the habit of using the pi button. So if you have the pi button on your calculator, use it. If you don't, you're going to do the 3.14. How do we feel about using our formula? Show me your thumbs. Okay, so we've got some people who are like, really not sure. So let's walk ourselves through this one more time. So with our formula, this is the formula that we need. 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. How do we feel about each part of that formula? Do we understand the parts of the formula, or we're not sure what those parts are? So we know the number 2. We know pi. Pi equals 3.14, or the pi button on your calculator. R, remember R is that radius. So R is the radius. And when we square something, multiply it by itself. So when we had 3 squared, we did 3 times 3. So if I write it all out, 2 pi r squared, 2 times that 3.14 times 3 times 3. Because that's what r squared is, 3 times itself. So you have to put this into your calculator, what you're multiplying, and that's when we get that 56.55 if you use the pi button. Here, we would do 2 times 3.14 times 3, because that's our radius, and then the height is 8. So we multiplied it by 8. So we put those 4 numbers in to multiply together. 2 times the 3.14 times 3 times 8. And again, I use the pi button on my calculator, so mine might be a little bit off if you did 3.14. And then we just have to add those 2 numbers together. So when you're writing it out on your paper, you're going to write it out like this, and you're going to write it out like this. You're going to put what each of those products are, and then you're going to add them together, and you're going to get your final answer. So you're going to find your first product, you'll find your second product, and you'll add the 2 together. So make sure you know your formula. Write it on your paper, on your worksheet, so you know what to follow. Just plug in the numbers and then do the multiplication on your calculator. Does that help a little bit? Do you know what numbers to put in here? Okay, so just follow it. If it's radius squared, you multiply your radius twice. Okay? All right, we'll see if it goes a little easier when we're actually doing our workbook page. Today's workbook page is page 163 and 164. For the 164, let's just do 10, 11, and 12. If you want to challenge yourself, you can do 13, 14, and 15. But you do not have to do 13, 14, and 15. So when you do, they are saying on here to use 3.14. I am recording. They are saying to use the 3.14 for pi. So instead of using our pi button so we all get the exact same number, we're going to use 3.14 for pi. Okay? So you're going to put that in so we all get the same number. Draw your net. Find your areas and add them together. Use the equation. Now you need to make sure I'm writing the equation correctly. So our equation is for the surface area 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. You're going to want to make sure to use those. So I'm writing it on my paper so I remember what numbers to plug in where. So again, you're doing the whole front side, 1 through 9, and then on the back side, you're going to do 10, 11, and 12. 13, 14, and 15 are bonus to help grow your brain if you're ready for it. Okay? So with that, we're going to say goodbye to our friends at home. We hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon.